Before we start playing with the bow, we need to talk a little bit about good bowing technique, and this is really important for upper strings. So when you move your bow arm, you're moving from the shoulder only a tiny amount. Most of the motion is coming from the elbow, the wrist, and the fingers. So I'm just going to demonstrate by placing my bow on a string and moving my arm back and forth. Just watch the motion. When I pull the bow towards the tip, my arm will straighten. When I go up back towards the frog, my arm will bend back in. So I'm just going to go back and forth a little bit just so you can see what it is that I'm doing. So very little of my arm motion is coming from the shoulder. Most of it's coming from my elbow, wrists, and fingers, and that's really important when you're starting out producing a good tone with your bow. There are three parts to good tone. The first part is bow placement, and that means where you are putting your bow on the string. So you should be setting your bow in between the bridge and the fingerboard, and you want to make sure that it's in a straight line parallel to the bridge, like this. When you pull the bow down, the bow should remain in a straight line because, as we showed in the previous section, you are pulling from the shoulder a little bit, mostly from the elbow and from the wrist, so your bow arm will straighten as you pull down and bend as you bow up. But the placement between the bridge and the fingerboard is very important. Also, what's important is where you set the bow on the string. This here is called the balance point. It's about 1/3 of the way down the bow, and I consider this to be sort of the sweet spot. It really allows you to have a good tone from the get-go, so always set your bow on the string at the balance point. The second part of good tone is bow weight. Now, weight is not the same as pressure. Pressure involves force, and you don't ever want to be forcing your arm to push the bow into the string. What you do instead is you allow the natural weight of your arm to rest into the stick of the bow, which will then transfer that weight into the hair. And what happens is really pretty magical. You can see I'm wiggling my bow here and it's not moving. When I have the appropriate amount of arm weight in the bow, that will start activating the rosin on the hair, and that will allow the rosin to stick to the strings. So that's why the bow isn't moving even though I'm wiggling it. So when I pull the bow, this activates the third component of good tone, which is bow speed. You want to move the bow quickly enough that the string starts to vibrate. If you move the bow too slowly, you get this creaky sound that's not very pleasant to listen to. And the reason that we're hearing that is because the bow is moving too slowly. It's moving too slowly, and the vibration from the string is not happening fast enough. So you set the bow at the balance point, you relax your arm into the bow, and then you pull down with a consistent speed of the bow. And you'll produce a nice clear tone like that. To change strings with the bow, you have to change the angle of your bow arm. So right now I'm on the violin, and this is the angle that my arm is at when I'm on the A string. And I can tell if I'm on the A string just by looking at the hair of my bow. I can see what string it's contacting, and if it looks like it's hitting more than one string, I can adjust with my bow arm from the elbow and shoulder until I'm hitting the string that I want to be on. So the angle for the E string looks like this. So my arm is closest to my body when I'm on the E string. I raise it slightly to go from E to A, a little bit more to go from A to D, and I raise it at its highest point when I go to the G string. So just study the levels of my elbow here. This is the G, this is the D, this is the A, and this is the E. So in the next exercise, we're going to practice what I call long tones, and this will be important to remember as we go to the next exercise. One of my favorite exercises to practice for developing good tone is called long tones. And long tones are exactly how they sound. You play long bows on each of your open strings, trying to achieve the best tone possible. So this exercise, we're going to play 4 long bows on each one of our strings. And the order is going to be A, D, G, and then E. Okay? So get ready, set your bow on the A string, make sure you're placing it at the balance point, make sure it's in a straight line and it's parallel to the bridge. Make sure you're resting your arm into the bow so that it activates the rosin and holds the bow there. And let's do 4 long bows on the A string. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, D string. G string. E string. Good job.